Happy Wednesday, podcast friends. Welcome into the Gramlich and Mac Lain podcast. This is EMAC. I am Taylor Tannebaum. I'm continuing to fill in for our friend Kelly. Great game coming up this weekend in South Florida. I don't know if you've heard, but the Florida Gators are rolling into town, EMAC, and the now fourth ranked Miami Hurricanes would like to keep those bragging rights that they so rightfully earned last year on the football field. And of course, trying to maintain that state advantage. They already took down USF. Miami did. You got Florida, and there's going to be Florida State in a couple weeks. So this is a big one this weekend.
It is huge. And here's the deal. I think it's just going to be B2A, right? Like these guys are rolling. Florida's struggling. I mean, and there's a lot of outside noise with Florida, negativity. And I don't know. We saw from Virginia Tech and how that team just kind of folded, which stinks. I think we see that here with Florida as well. And I think Miami just absolutely rolls. So to talk about this game, we got to bring on the one and only D-Money. I know Canes fans, you guys love him and follow him very well. We're super grateful for his time. This was a super fun interview. We touch about everything on Miami and dive into a little game talk as well. So quickly, we're going to have a message from our friends over at Ingles, and then we'll talk with Danny.
Did you know that Ingles sells more organics than any other store? Or that they run their own dairy? Or that they only serve USDA choice and prime meat? Did you know that they have more local craft beer than any place else? Or that they have Energy Smart stores? Or that they professionally slice and package imported cheese from Europe? Did you know about their giant international aisle, local farm partnerships, curbside pickup, wine department? Or that they donate 3,956 meals a day to local food banks? Well, now you do. It's all in the bag. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
D-Money, great to see you, brother. I love every time we get to talk to you, man, because you just bring such great CanesInSight to the program here and the things that you do. Really appreciate that and the coverage that you have for Miami. But I'm excited to talk with you today and get you on the show to look at all things Hurricanes because these boys are balling. And listen, I talk with Aaron Murray, I talk with EJ Manuel, I talk with Eddie Royal, Taylor Tannebaum. Everybody's high on these Hurricanes, and a lot of people think they're the most complete team in the country. Where are you right now, man? How are we feeling about these Hurricanes?
Feeling great, man. Look, everybody knows you guys do your homework. I saw you in the dead of summer right there watching camp. Taylor, I don't know how you kept, you had your makeup on. You were dressed so nice. You looked like not a bead of sweat on you. I don't know how that was possible because it was cooking. Eric was getting his tan on. But, yeah, man, same team you saw there. You're seeing now, I think. I mean, I'll leave it to you guys because you guys were there, but what we saw in camp is what we're seeing on the field. It's kind of an old school, just solid team. If you look at the structure of it, you got a veteran quarterback who's 23 years old who can read the defense, is going to be patient, is going to make the right reads. You have an offensive line that can protect him. You got a power running game that can run when the other team doesn't want them to run. Receivers, quarterback friendly, get open, catch the ball. You got defensive ends that can close the game, as you saw against Notre Dame. They stop the run, and then the corners are long, and they can tackle as well. So just kind of a fundamentally sound, physical, old school team. Not as deep, obviously, as some of those Alabama teams that you saw when Cristobal was working for Saban, because portal era, those teams don't exist. But I think the outlines of it are similar to maybe some of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to build what they did years ago, especially with the layout of college football now. But I think you're getting as close to it as you possibly can down there in Coral Gables. And I think the evolution of this Miami program under Mario Cristobal is also so important to dissect because you know what it felt like when he was hired. Everyone's pumped up. And then early on, there were some setbacks in the first couple of years. It felt like they were building something. But, Miami fans have high expectations and they were wondering, is Coach Cristobal the right guy for the job? Is this going to work out? And then now you're finally really seeing it come to fruition. And it takes 3 to 4 years sometimes to really put your imprint on a program. How have you felt covering the program from coming off last year to where it is now? What do you feel like is different internally and on the field as this Cristobal era has progressed?
It's a great question, and we'll find out, right? Because this period that we're in now here, so big non-conference win, the hype is building. It's not that much different than where Miami's been in the recent history. So 23, you beat Texas A&M at home, right. You're rolling, and then the Georgia Tech kneel down game and everything kind of goes sideways from there. Last year, you beat Florida. I know I went on with you and Kelly, Eric, on that show, and everybody was feeling good. But then towards the end of the season, Georgia Tech, again, Now, the Clemson, your boys got to deal with Haynes King and those guys, but they ruined our season again and kind of sent things sideways. So we'll see. I think now we'll find out how different it is. There is a sense that it's just more sustainable. Obviously, the defense is playing at a higher level, although the defense was playing pretty good at this time last year, but it just feels a little bit more sustainable because of the talent level and just the overall advancement of the program. Now you get to year 4, but we got to wait and see. So there's still a little bit of that lingering kind of let's see it play out, because really November has been where Miami struggled historically, and we're a long way from there. And obviously a big game coming up this week and many more on the horizon.
I actually like the pause. I like the hesitation there, because you're right. And let's be real, about, where Miami has struggled and how they have struggled. It has been later in the season, but I think there is also something to that sustainability. And it's not and listen, I love Cam Ward. I see the jersey behind you. I think he was unbelievable. The things that he was able to do, one of one. And I thought, this is a tangent. Sorry, I'm taking a left turn here. I thought it was the laziest, dumbest takes in the world of everybody in the preseason and offseason saying, well, Cam Ward's gone. Carson Beck's not Cam Ward. How can he do it? And just people saying that Shannon Dawson's not out here looking for Cam Ward's, okay? There's only one of that guy, and they didn't build the offense around him. It's what they had, and so they made it happen. Carson Beck's style of offense, which is going through his reads. I mean, I just got done watching the USF tape. This dude is surgical. I mean, he's 1, 2, 3 ball, 1, 2, 3 ball. First reads open, get it out. It is incredible to see his just understanding of an offense that, quite frankly, he didn't have spring to go through it with, probably didn't have much summer, had full fall camp there. But that's the piece to me, Danny, that's sustainable. A veteran, old quarterback that knows what he's looking at from a protection standpoint, knows what he's looking at from where to get the ball. That's sustainable. And I think that is the biggest difference to me, obviously, along with the defense. But that's why maybe I'm a little bit more encouraged about what this team is going and can do.
Yeah, with Cam last year, obviously he was the first pick of the draft, so that was his individual talent. That's who he was as a prospect, separate from the team. But if you look at when he was at Washington State versus Miami, he actually had as good or better receivers at Washington State. It sounds crazy to say, but Kyle Williams was a very high draft pick. He had Stripling at one point, who since transferred on. They had good, solid receivers. Josh Kelly, who went to Texas Tech. So they had a good receiving core there. The reason that offense was somewhat of a middling offense, I think they're ranked like 50th in most categories, is because they couldn't run the ball and they didn't have the offensive line. So some of the things that elevated Cam Ward from where he was at Washington State to unquestioned number 1 pick, unquestioned number 1 offense, those things stayed, right? The offensive line, the ability to run with power, and all the Shannon Dawson, all those things. So you bring in Carson Beck, and you said it, the experience. Cam Ward, we talk about how magical he was and all his talent, and that's all there. But the secret sauce of Cam Ward, that was his 5th year as a starting quarterback. That doesn't exist. That's very hard to replicate without, a pandemic stopping a season or delaying the eligibility, right? You can't start 5 years. So he was extraordinarily experienced, similar to Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix the year before him, who were also like those 5-year starter kind of guys. So Beck doesn't have that kind of experience, but he's class of 2020. He's been around a ton. His quality of experience can't be higher because he was in the SEC. And, like you said, it's surgical. A lot of that is the time he gets. So it's that combination of a lot of time and then having all the answers to the test because you've been in college for so long, and being a smart, he's a smart player to begin with. That's always been kind of a strength of his game, is reading defenses. So put that all together, and I think you have what you saw against USF and to a lesser degree against Notre Dame, which is just a highly efficient. I think he's up to almost 80% on the completion percentage right now, 78, something like that. So that's all the byproduct of not only his experience, but having the protection and the time to go through his reads.
Yeah, he literally has an eternity back there. Coach Dave Clawson was breaking down tape with me yesterday on that Miami offense and the operation. And he has, first of all, a mile before a D lineman is even near him and all the time in the world, which is really exciting to see. You're so entrenched down there, and you get to go to practices and press conferences and kind of get to know and talk to these young men a little bit more than we get to on a regular basis. How have you seen him really take on, and I mean him, Carson Beck, take on that leadership role, especially with these receivers? Because there's a lot of new in that room too, and if not new, inexperienced. Also guys who hadn't had key roles before. How have you seen that really come to fruition and what you've learned in talking to these guys and talking to Carson over the last couple of months?
Yeah, great question. We sat down with Carson for like 50 minutes, something I did for the University of Miami, just a sit down interview. He really opened up. He was way more talkative than I expected him to be, given all the scrutiny he's had.
Right.
So he was very open about just how much fun he's having with these guys. And he's from Florida. He's from Jacksonville. So being back in Florida after the last game against USF, they asked him, and he said, "Look, I'm a Florida boy. This is kind of where I belong. I'm really fitting in the locker room, even though he is an older guy." It's interesting. It might have been the practice you were at or one of the practices shortly thereafter. He hit a touchdown to Malachi Tony, and they had like a long, elaborate handshake. And I was standing right next to Malachi's mom, and I said, you know he's going to get some balls that they already have a handshake. And she said they've had that handshake for 2 months. So it's like, and this is Malachi Tony, who's 17 years old. Carson Beck is 23. So he really has, and it's not fake. I mean, if you're just watching when they're not expecting people to be watching, just kind of like looking on the sideline, looking at practice, like it's constant. He's a lot more vocal, I guess, than I expected. I watched him at Georgia, but I didn't know he was so animated, right? He is all day moving, talking smack, pumping up the crowd, pumping up his teammates. He's definitely not one of these guys that kind of just like goes to the side and stands alone. At least I haven't seen that at University of Miami. So I think that's all going very well. Now, look, things are going well. So when things are going well, it's always kind of like that, and to a degree. But I do think his personality, from everything I've seen myself, everything I've heard, is fitting well. And he is having a lot of fun, kind of like Coach Richt, your colleague, when he came down to Miami. Obviously, totally different times in their career, and everything else. But, I did sense some relief when Coach Rick came to Miami, and just like, all right, I'm here to have fun. I'm here to win and prove people wrong and all that kind of stuff. It's just different energy. And you see some of that with Carson Beck, obviously different point in their careers. But I do see similarities there, just in that, like, hey, there's a monkey off my back. There's a lot of pressure. There's still pressure, but it's more energy. Like, hey, I want to prove people wrong.
Right. Yeah, there's something about that Georgia to Miami connection. We need to exploit that a little more, maybe. Find some more connections there that we can take advantage of. Well, we mentioned those wide receivers, and we can stay here for a while if you want, or we can move to another position. But specifically looking at that 17-year-old and Malachi Tony. And, it's fascinating because you and I, the three of us, we're talking about him at camp, and he kind of catches your eye, right? Because he just looks different. He's not the biggest or the baddest, but he just is this compact, like almost running back at receiver type guy, kind of like Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying he has that speed, but that's just what I thought, and the number obviously helps that. Moving around, making plays, and just kept showing up. I'm like, who's that? Who's that guy? And you go, oh, that's baby Jesus. It's like, whoa, what are we talking about here? And then you ask some of the coaches, and then you ask the strength staff about him, and they're having to kick him out of the facility because he's staying too late watching film. They need him to sleep. They need him to rest and recover. This guy seems well beyond his years. Have you spoken to him at all? Where does that come from? Like, how is he that as a 17-year-old kid?
Yeah, shout out to you had a production assistant, I think, that played with him. It was giving you the inside scoop.
My cousin. It was my little cousin who came for the day.
Shout out to little cousin. He was giving us some extra scoop as well. But, Malachi, he was a quarterback his whole life. So I think there's some of that too. Last year, he played for American Heritage, which obviously, Taylor, from growing up on Plantation. And their quarterback, Dia Bell's committed to Texas. He's actually the number one quarterback, or depending who you ask, top 5 quarterback in the country this year, going to be a freshman at Texas next year. And he got hurt. So Malachi Tony played quarterback, which was his youth football position, to replace what a lot of people thought was the best quarterback in the country. And the offense actually improved with him playing quarterback. And the thing that's crazy when you really watch his film, he's playing good teams, is he was not the type of quarterback that was like, or a receiver playing quarterback that's running around just being an athlete, right? I'm going to get us through this game just with my athletic ability. He was playing quarterback. I mean, he was throwing. He was like 17 to 18 at one point, and I'm like, he looked like Cam Ward. Obviously not as talented, not like he's not going to be the first pick of the draft at quarterback, but the way he played, he was a passing, cerebral quarterback, even though he is a receiver. So I think he's just one of those guys that has extremely high instincts, extremely high IQ. Like you mentioned, he works very hard, very mature. You mentioned Tyreek Hill with the 10. Obviously, yeah, that's the speed with Hill is kind of unique. Who he reminds me, if we're going to do the Hall of Famer comparison, and I do all the normal disclaimers on that, The guy he reminds me of the most is actually Antonio Brown, who
Wow.
Antonio Brown is from South Florida. He's from Miami, just like Malachi's from South Florida. He was a quarterback growing up at Norland as well. Antonio Brown was more of a running quarterback, but also a quarterback, kind of similar size, similar speed. He's not 4.2 or 4.1 or whatever Tyreek Hill is, but he's in that 4.4, mid 4.4 range, 4.5 range, super quick, just quarterback friendly. I think that's kind of the key word. You saw it on that route that he caught against Notre Dame, where he came across instead of just drifting and getting that ball picked. He saw what Carson Beck was seeing there. And I think that really, really helps him help Carson Beck. And that's why Carson Beck loves him so much, is because he's quarterback friendly. He's going to know where to go. He's going to be reliable. And he doesn't play like a freshman.
Yeah, he's been so reliable, and great to see Joshua Moore, the other freshman, highly touted freshman in this class, get a couple of touchdowns against USF too, because these two are your future of this program. Like, I know Carson Beck is kind of on rental right now, but those are the two guys who are going to be carrying this program for the foreseeable future. So it's been really fun to kind of see that early on in the season and playing at a high level. On the other side of the ball, and I know we're going to get to talking about the game coming up this weekend, but Emac and I were joking about this earlier this week when we recorded the podcast. You look at the defensive stats, and we've already noted the defense is better than it has been in the past, at least at this point in the season. We'll see how it all pans out. But your top two tacklers from the win over USF and your top two tacklers on the season are Akeem Messidor and Ruben Bain. Your big D linemen, your leaders on that defense. What do you make of that and what you're seeing from those dudes? Look, you can apply expectation preseason, but it doesn't always pan out. And so far, it feels like, yeah, the dudes who were supposed to be dudes are being dudes on that side of the ball.
No doubt, and closers, right? The Notre Dame game, they closed it out, but I think they're bigger defensive ends, right? They're over 260 pounds. Messidor was defensive tackle last year, which is out of position for him. I think he's more natural where he is now, but he actually slimmed down. He was swimming. He was doing yoga. I did an interview with him for UM, and I was joking with him. You could tell he's an older guy because he's doing all the old guy stuff, right, to stay in shape and stay flexible without getting sore. But clearly, he looks quicker, more dynamic. He's having a great year, always been good with his hands and his motor. With Bain, and I want to kind of ask Mac this because you played the game at this level. I've talked to coaches and just observing the game. The most underrated thing, or at least the thing we don't talk about enough from what I've heard and what I've seen, is power, right? Just pure power knockback. And I think with Bain, we talk about the bend, we talk about the speed and all first step, all those things. But man, I have not seen a guy that powerful at Miami since Vince Wilfork, right? At least just in terms of knocking guys back, different positions, obviously. But from your standpoint, Mac, like as an offensive lineman, a guy with just pure power like that, I mean, how does that impact the game?
Well, what it does is it adds another layer because that's all you're thinking about. And you're thinking about, I have to lock down, I have to jump on him as quick as I can. And what's so unique about him is he is very powerful, but he's also fast and has moves. So as soon as he sees you kind of take that hop step, he's ripping, he's chopping, and he's getting right by you. And he just overwhelms you with everything that he has. And I was so fascinated with Ruben, like, which way is he going to go? Is he going to gain weight? Is he going to be a 3 technique? Is he going to lose weight and be a true edge? And he looks fantastic. I love what he's doing. And he just can take over a game. And that's exactly what we saw in Notre Dame. But, the fact that he is the leading tackler on this team at the defensive end position, I don't want to undervalue that. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen, playing 2 ranked teams and a fluff game in the middle there. It's remarkable to see what he's doing. And it's very hard to go against because you think, okay, a guard can block him. Guard's a little stronger. Guard's too slow. Tackle, long arms, he's going to get it. Well, once the power kicks in, it's a whole different beast. So he truly is that perfect, kind of left side if you're the defense, right side if you're the offense, run stopping, pass rushing, defensive end. And so it is a really challenging thing to be able to go against a guy like that. Usually it's one or the other. They're either big and slow and strong, or they're small and fast, and you can kind of counter. He's a perfect blend of both, which is terrifying for everybody, certainly terrifying for Florida here. One more before we jump into some game talk here and maybe some predictions and what you think's going to happen. Maybe 6 interceptions. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe not. I'm being rude.
No, it's okay. You're
Overall
never
on this
too rude.
defense.
Come on.
Yeah. It's just, it's all good. I'm wearing my shirt for a reason. When you look at this defense and maybe outside of Ruben Bain and Akeem Messidor, because I think they've been overwhelmingly brilliant. What's the biggest difference that you've noticed? What's something that because you said a couple of minutes ago, we were pretty good right now defensively. What is making you think this defense will be good for the long haul, what you've seen to this point?
Definitely more physical just throughout the course of the game. I mean, they are constantly knocking back. You feel them. You feel their presence. You hear the pads. I know it sounds so like superficial, but like it just sounds different watching the defense on a play-to-play basis. You have guys like Jacoby Thomas, number 8, the safety they brought in from Tennessee, who he is a hit first kind of player, almost to a fault. But we needed a little bit of that edge. You just
Hey,
didn't have
let me tell
guys
you a
like
quick
that.
story about that. Sorry
Yeah,
to
please.
interrupt. When we were at that practice, they were doing kind of an inside drill. That dude hit the hole so fast, and it was on Mark Fletcher, by the way. Knocked him backwards. I was like, "Who? Miami hadn't had that in a while. That's good to see." All right, go ahead. Sorry.
And you saw the film last week, so you saw him tackling Byron Brown,
Yeah.
like really, really kind of, I think, messed him up for the rest of the game on one of the hits he had, because Byron Brown really did not get going running, and we know how tough and dynamic he is, and he got a hit that was brutal. He completed the pass. It was an unbelievable play, and then also later on forced fumble. So he's a good tackler as well on top of being physical. I think guys like that, Mo Toure, middle linebacker, these are veteran guys that are coming in, 22, 23, that they're hit first kind of players. So that has set a tone, I think, that's permeated through the team. But then just like personnel-wise, the corners, and you were at practice, so when you just look at them, they're long, they're very athletic. I mean, they're NFL type of bodies, and there's 4 of them that really can go. And on top of, you added a nickel, Keontae Scott from Auburn, who's now back at his natural nickel spot and playing phenomenal, potential NFL guy there. So the overhaul of the secondary, I think they hit on those evaluations. Obviously, it cost them some money. These were very valuable players. You also had landed O.J. Frederick the year before, who was a freshman All-American. He continues to progress. Damari Brown, he had signed 2 years before getting healthy. So some homegrown guys, then also the portal. The defensive back room, I just think, is transformed from a physical standpoint, and the performance has been there as well.
Rhoback just dropped their licensed game day collection. Polos, hoodies, Q-zips, custom designed for your school. On game days, we wear Rhoback, period.
Well,
Yeah, I would agree with that. That was obviously the Achilles heel last year. Okay, looking toward this game on Saturday against Florida. You're a Floridian. You know the magnitude of these games. You're around, so you can understand exactly what this is all about. Why does Miami have the edge over Florida this upcoming Saturday?
yeah, we were talking about off air. I mean, off the field, I hate this week in this game because
Yeah.
Miami is going to be, they have game day. They've been playing phenomenal ball. You're seeing some media people that are not, ACC Miami people putting them number 1, number 2 as far as the best teams they've seen. So they're going to be hearing that all week. It's going to be a Miami love fest all week. That's just kind of the nature of how it's going to go. Where Florida, DJ Lagway, who I think is a very talented player, I'm actually a fan of what he brings to the table. He is going to be basically playing for his career on Saturday. Not really, because he has a long career ahead of him, but the mentality is, I'm getting dirt thrown on me. I had 5 picks. Everybody says I'm bad now. I was the best quarterback in the country, according to some people, when the season started. So all those dynamics, I think, are things Miami has to work against, which is concerning to me. Obviously, a rivalry game in state. Florida has talent, so when they're charged up, they can cause damage. They really played better than what the final score was last week. They gave that game away in many respects. So all those things are to me concerning. Now, on the field, I think Miami matches up very well. And it's for the reason we talked about right off the top. Florida's pass rush has been very poor this year. I think they had 1 sack between the last 2 games, maybe 3 total hurries or something like that last game. I mean, they're not getting to the passer. And their most dynamic D lineman, Caleb Banks, is out for the game, their interior defensive lineman. So they're just, on paper, they're not a team that's going to threaten Miami's pass blocking, which is significantly better than LSU's and USF's. Probably at least top 3 in the country. I would argue the best in the country. Certainly that was how it looked last year when Miami played Florida with Banks, and they didn't get any pressure whatsoever on Cam Ward. So I think that's, from a football standpoint, would be my biggest concern as a UF fan, because the Beck, with time we talked about, is going to tear him up.
Mm-hmm.
I think really with Miami this year, they have enough talent, particularly with these kind of games, with a team like Florida that's reeling, where if they play their style of football, they don't have to do anything extra. They just have to play a clean version of what they play. I think they'll be able to run the ball with power. against Florida. Notre Dame more stout up front. They were able to run the ball in that game as well. We talked about Carson Beck. Defensively, the power thing. I mean, Notre Dame had good offensive tackles, but I think their weakness was that they were just a little light with from a just anchor standpoint, dealing with power. That was their Achilles heel, I thought, going into the game. And then obviously Miami exploited that. I think Florida's pretty similar. I'm not sure they can deal with the power of the defensive ends when it comes to protecting Lagway. And then, Lagway's obviously had struggles, and the offense overall has not been particularly dynamic throwing the ball, a lot of short passes. So swarm to the ball, tackle, communicate, block and tackle. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but I think Miami's at a point in their program now where they don't have to do anything crazy to win these kind of games. They just have to play their brand of football and impose their will. And I think their physical matchups on both sides of the trenches are enough that they can impose their will if they play clean and avoid, bad penalties, communication errors, turnovers, all the usual stuff.
Yeah, you certainly have to be smart. I mean, the mental aspect of this game, for a lot of the reasons you just said, might be the most intriguing hurdle for Miami. You're really good. Everyone's starting to talk about you. As you mentioned, game day, huddle, everybody's going to be there talking about how great you are and how you should dominate this game. How can you block all that out? How can you turn up the headphones and not pay attention, put on the blinders, continue to be who you are? But then the other mental aspect of this thing, with, as you said, Lagway playing for his career, with Billy Napier coaching for his job. I mean, I think that's already done. I think this will be the nail in the coffin after what Miami does to these guys on Saturday night. But there's a lot. And so is there going to be chippiness? Is Florida going to be trying to bait you into getting 15-yard penalties and to doing things outside of what you normally do? And I think that's where great teams separate themselves. How can you truly focus on the logo on your helmet and the name on the front and back of your jersey, and that's it? It doesn't matter who you play. It doesn't matter who you line up against. We're Miami. We're the Hurricanes. We're going to set the tone. And if you can't meet that, it's going to be a really long, bad day for you. And I think that that's where these guys are. I think the veteran leadership, the things that I've heard and seen, like they're ready to take that step on top of this staff. And I've said this for 3 years now. When you talk about pressure and everybody loving you and all of that will never amount to the pressure that Miami feels from alumni, from former players, from people inside the building. That pressure that's always there will forever be greater than anything that we can put on them from the media side. And I think that that's why they'll be able to deal with this thing. Going back into some of the game plan here, I think it's bully ball again. That's just who Miami's going to be. Can they run the ball against you, be more physical, push you out of the way? Mark Fletcher has been a freak. I give a lot of credit to this offensive line. They have been very good. I think they can get better, and I think there's another step they can take. Mark Fletcher is elite. That guy is making and helping these guys look unbelievable. He's running through tackles, and I don't see how that changes. I mean, Florida had 3 tackles for loss, one of those being a sack against USF. This is a whole different ball game that you're going to be going against. I love what I've seen from the running attack with Mark and those other guys in the backfield.
And Jordan Lyle took the first snap against Notre Dame, and he's been pretty much out all season. So Mark Fletcher is a starting back, so it's not like you're talking about more of a 1A, 1B situation, but still you're missing one of the guys that you expected to do a lot of damage, and he may be back this week. We'll see. But with Fletcher, love him. His personality, he is very much the captain of this team. And I compare it to kind of having a big brother in a fight, because when you have Mark Fletcher running the ball, you're always going to have that kind of physicality advantage. So you play a team like Notre Dame, who is, a bully on the block. That's how they play. And Mark Fletcher's running them over. Now it's kind of like, okay, we're in this. So Miami has a lot of bullies, but I think Fletcher really is. It's more than just his production, what he brings. If you watch him on pass protection, I mean, his chips or if he's just straight up blocking a guy, it's not catch a guy. He is knocking people back like far. I mean, he's creating extra space in that pocket. I don't care if it's a 260-pound defensive end or who it is. He is that explosive and powerful and willing to knock someone back. So he is an invaluable player. Marty Brown from North Dakota State has been helpful. It's an interesting running game. Mac, I wonder what you kind of feel about this as a lineman, because tight splits, right? Very conservative inside the tackles. Like you're trying not to lose yards, but at the same time, you're counting on your guys to push and dominate physically, both running backs and offensive linemen. So you're always getting, 5, 6 and making Carson Beck's life easy. But There's always a lot of talk about our running game, like amongst Cane fans, like, I wish we ran more, outside. We did maybe more, I guess, risky plays trying to pop big ones, but there's something to be said, right, for a running game that is so conservative, but yet so effective and protects the quarterback.
Well, here's the deal. The big plays are great, and you want those. I mean, I want to be off the field as soon as I can, but there's something mentality-wise of every time I line up, we're going to run the ball. Cam Ward used to point it out right here, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. We're going to get 3 to 4 yards, and guess what? We're going to line up, and we're going to do it again, and then we're going to do it again. And then and that is so demeaning. You pop off a big run. It's like, one guy missed, he missed the gap or he missed the tackle. When we're doing that and we're marching down the field, you're like, do I want to play this game? Taylor, do I want to do this anymore? Like, that's what that defense is asking themselves when you can line up and do that. So Canes fans, I hear you. And sure, that's great. But also, I think that you have backs special enough, and we saw it a couple of times against USF. They'll run in between the B gap, and then boom, they'll pop out, and it's a 30-yard touchdown. And so I would trust what's going on. And, I think longevity-wise and throughout the season, those are things that are sustainable. That's things that you can hang your hat on. And when you start playing in the college football playoff and you line up against Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, whoever, you can still do that. You're not relying upon somebody making a mistake or a big pop run happening to save kind of the drive. No, we're just going to walk down the field, eat up a bunch of clock, and take your will away. So, yeah. Taylor, that's the thing to me, and I'm cool with it.
And to be fair, that's complimentary football, too. You're giving your defense a break. Let the defense get a breath, too. Like, if you're on and off the field, and we've talked about that a little bit with SMU and how sometimes it can be, the offense is out there, boom, boom, bada bing, they find the end zone, and then the defense is out there for much longer, and sometimes that can take a toll throughout the course of a season. This is the best way to play complimentary football. If you can just continue to run the ball down people's throats, and then your guys are over there resting, they come out and do their thing, and you got everyone feeling pretty good when the game is over. My other thing, though, Danny, Shamar Brown is who you just mentioned, but we're going with Marty? This is the first I'm hearing.
Yeah, when you said that, I was like, who?
Yeah.
And you said North Dakota State, I was like, wait.
By the way, Taylor, great point. I think USF last week's an example of what you're talking about, right? Because they play so fast, and they were really, I think, sucking wind by the end of that game, and they didn't want to be there. They're gonna feel it the game against Miami for the rest of the month, if not longer. But yeah, it goes by Marty, Shamar Brown. That's makes it easier. But yeah, Marty Brown from North Dakota State, had an interview with him after the Notre Dame game. Great kid, under recruited. Nebraska did not recruit him out of Omaha, Nebraska. Goes to North Dakota State, which is obviously a big time FCS program. Does well there. Wins the Best Young Player of the Year award that Cam Ward actually won when he was at Incarnate Word. Ends up transferring to Miami and making an impact there. But yeah, Jordan Lyle's the one to watch. I don't know that with injuries. I usually don't ask because. We know Mario is like from the Saban school on that, so I don't even try to find out on injuries, even off the record. I'm like, hey, I'll see him when I see him.
Right.
But Lyle, I know, is not that far off. He probably could have played last week, and he is another big back who adds a dynamic element. He probably has the most speed out of all of those guys. So, kind of to your point, Taylor, when you wear them down, a lot of Lyle's big runs last year as a true freshman were later in the game where people were tired of tackling Fletcher, they were tired of tackling Martinez, and then boom, you get another 200-plus pound back who this time has 4.4 speed and can go to the house. Big plays tend to happen, so we'll see this week. But I do think physically Miami has the advantage, and they just they need to stick with their identity, which Florida truthfully should have done in their game against USF. I thought, and they kind of got away from that. I don't know why.
Tried to trick them, yeah.
Got them.
We'll see. We'll see. Danny, you are the best, man. Thank you for your time. Cannot wait to be down there. We're going to be on campus. I hope it's unbelievably loud, packed, crazy. And then that game, it's time to handle some business. Cannot wait.
Can't wait. Weather's looking good. The forecast is clearing up for you guys. It should be an awesome time. Obviously, we're rolling out the red carpet, so excited to get you guys down here. I hope you enjoy Miami.